Yeah, greetings, my fellow Ambazonians. My name is Tapangai Votanku. I am here with the breaking news. The family of Nsahlai Emmanuel will be languishing for 30 good years in the federal prison in the United States of America. Let me give you the breaking news and the good news. This woman called Rosemary Nsahlai, the blood sister, one mommy, one papa of Nsahlai Emmanuel, the quack of Nsahlai Emmanuel, whom I won in federal court, of Nsahlai Emmanuel, whom the federal judges ordered to pay me $12,000 for leveling frivolous charges against my personality. Nsahlai Emmanuel, who is the son of a state thief, whose father was a thief, an ugly thief, running the Cameroun government. Nsahlai's family in the United States will be languishing for the next 30 years because the sister and her husband have been sentenced to 30 years in federal prison for conducting fraud under the watchful eyes of Joe Biden, under the watchful eyes of the entire Americans, under the watchful eyes of Donald Trump. Let me read the story from the Attorney General's office. United States Attorney's Office, Eastern District of Virginia. This is publicly accessible information. A federal jury convicted an Ashburn woman today on charges of conspiracy, bank fraud, and money laundering. According to court records and evidence presented at trial, Rosemary Nsahlai, 47, and her husband fraudulently obtained 2 Paycheck Protection Program (PPP) loans. The PPP was a program instituted by the United States Congress to help businesses affected by the coronavirus pandemic continue to pay salaries or wages to their employees. Nsahlai carried out the scheme in connection with 2 of her husband's businesses by creating fraudulent payroll documentation for each business and then submitting the documentation in support of the PPP loan applications. The fraudulent documentation represented that her husband's businesses had dozens of employees with over 17 million of annual payroll in 2019, when in fact they had few, if any, employees. In total, Nsahlai and her husband fraudulently obtained approximately $2.5 million in loan proceeds and then spent those funds on items unrelated to any legitimate PPP-related expenses. Those items included the down payment on a 7,000 square foot home in Leesburg, Virginia. Nsahlai's husband pleaded guilty to the scheme in 2021. Nsahlai faces a maximum penalty of up to 30 years in prison when sentenced on July 19 this year. Actual sentences for federal crimes are typically less than the maximum penalties. The federal district court judge will determine any sentence after taking into account the U.S. sentencing guidelines and other statutory factors. My name is Tapang Ivotanku, and do have a pleasant day as we've exposed these state thieves from Cameroon hiding and residing in the United States of America.
Hi, greetings my fellow Ambazonians. I salute everybody. My name is Tapang Ivo. Tanku, I come again for come broke this particular breaking news. Great news, sweet news, pepper news is sweet past alagata pepper. Now, Nsahlai Emmanuel, this quack one at the same on a screen, and his sister, this woman, Nsahlai also, you direct one mommy, one papa sister. That means they born them as they born you, so the next year they born Nsahlai Emmanuel. This woman for on a screen, and this brother, now all the Nsahlai family. Their papa have been a thief man for Cameroon, state thief, a very ugly fellow, Nsahlai Christopher. May he rest in pieces. Their papa been a thief man for Cameroon. He ruined people their futures. People they like he ruined their futures. Now they are picking where they sponsor them. They come United States of America. They still continue the thief for this United States. Now If you see at the right hand for my screen, there is a story. And this particular story, they show you, say, Ashburn woman convicted of 2.5 million pandemic fraud. Pandemic fraud, Ashburn woman convicted of 2.5 million pandemic fraud. I go read this particular story, one of the same on the side of my screen, for expose the gangster regime and his cohorts. They are picking them. They always favor their papa them. No, they favor their papa. No me, they favor their papa. For thief, yes, they favor papa. For face, yes. For everything, they favor papa. Make a break down this story so that make una for Ambazonia una get revolutionary orgasm. Why? Because this idiot waiting for screen, he don't report some of we for all kind bureaus of investigation. Lie about we for court. So that I win them. I don't win them tire so that they pay me $12,000. Say make I take and compensate myself with them. From this Nsahlai, a man the owner the same for on a screen, I be winning for court for America. And as God go do a thing, God don't expose the hunter. That means the hunter becomes the haunted. Now, make I maximize my screen and read on this particular story where it be very good news. But before then, make I take out this idiots, their picture them for my corner screen and maximize and show on the story. Now, when I see this thing come up from the United States Attorney's Office, that means a big lawyer for United States, the major, the like Attorney General for Cameroun of Ambazonia. Read the story. Ashburn woman convicted of 2.5 million fraud pandemic. And this is the real story. As we read, we go down. A federal jury convicted an Ashburn woman today on charges of conspiracy, bank fraud, and money laundering. According to the court records and evidence presented at trial, Rosemary Nsahlai, 47, and her husband fraudulently obtained 2 Paycheck Protection Program PPP loans. The PPP was a program instituted by the United States Congress to help businesses affected by the coronavirus pandemic continue to pay salaries or wages to their employees. Nsahlai carried out the scheme in connection with 2 of her husband's businesses by creating fraudulent payroll documentation for each business and then submitting that documentation in support of the PPP loan applications. The fraudulent documentation presented at that her husband's businesses had dozens of employees with over 17 million US dollars of annual payroll in 2019, when in fact they had few, if any, employees. In total, Nsahlai and her husband fraudulently obtained approximately $2.5 million in loan proceeds, and they then spent those funds on items unrelated to any legitimate PPP related expense. Those items included the down payment on a 7,000 square foot home in Leesburg, Virginia. Nsahlai's husband pleaded guilty to the scheme in 2021. I want to see him, they don't hyperlink him, and I go open, I want to go see him. Nsahlai faces a maximum of about 30 years in prison. Ambazonians, this is real news. Now, this is this woman called Nsahlai Rosemary, and your husband, last year, the husband, when I see him, 2021, that was about 2 years ago. Thursday, January 28, 2021, the husband 2 years ago was also on the trial, the docket. He pled guilty to the $2.5 million coronavirus fraud. Now, when I see the husband in name, Didier Kindambo, where the show saying surely La Republique. That means La Republique, they married La Republique, and La Republique, they like have a thief. I never see me family with a thief. So no me yo. I never see them before. See family, when I see exactly the fraud, and these are the people who claim to have a reputation or even some credibility to report Ambazonians in courts in the United States. Now, I hope the FBI and all those departments,
alongside other Ambazonians in the diaspora.
One of the things we need to ask, and I'm one of those people that was completely not even in line with the propaganda that went through Resurrects status being arrested or being questioned. And if you have watched online with what I have done, I will not be sounding so political. You know, people like Kedia, they support a particular platform and a particular ideology. I've been asking several times if Eric Tato was arrested linked to offenses committed or related to the Cameroonian crisis. And many knew very well that it was a vehemently zero, a no. And that those who picked up as an opportunity took it to gain some cheap political points at the level of their paymaster. And that others who have files and envelopes waited or are waiting them in a 2D, some even wrote happily that if the envelope can still come, they are very happy. That's what somebody who works and said they are doing their activism with an Nsahlai law firm said they were happy. If the envelope can come, they will take it honestly and then feel it themselves. But one of the things I have tried to ask is, are Cameroonians really serious about building a judicial system? Why should you be thinking that somebody arrested for offenses committed in the United States should be extradited to Cameroon? Eric Tato was one of those who equally benefited from the COVID incident. If we learn very well that the United States government came out bailing companies that has faced an economic situation during the COVID pandemic. And so Eric Tato is not only alone. I want to tell you that even close relatives of the Nsahlai law firms were equally affected. The wife of Nsahlai equally benefited from that fund. And sometime last year, he was equally questioned on performing a fake payroll. And performing a fake payroll means violate the US laws and not Cameroonian laws. But since then, we know that Nsahlai is one of the group that is based in the US trying to them counter or pro state politics in Cameroon. He is always trying to prove to his paymaster that he's doing an extremely good work. But should we gain political points when we don't offer anything? That is the reason. Eric Tato was not released because bail, or it is the provision of the law. And you know the law on extradition. Even when you are the worst criminal on earth, they only extradite you. I mean, if Eric was arrested on the Cameroonian case, like Madame Ngam and the rest, they can never be extradited to Cameroon if the judicial system in the United States proves a better system. It's not the kidnapping system that happened with the Naira 9 or those whom we have that were arrested in Lagos. And one of the things we need to know, that the judicial system in Africa is a respecter of the king, the respecter of the crown, and nothing about the rules of institutions. And so we cannot extradite somebody from the United States to Cameroon, where we know that there's a lot of political intimidation, a lot of political gain points, a lot of corruption and embezzlement, where people might even just be condemned for the fact that they don't support a particular political ideology, where people can even be condemned just for the fact that they were hated because they come from a hated tribe, or maybe what we call the Anglophone syndrome in Cameroon. Those are some of the issues when you look at it. We have a lot of people who reside in France, or we have others within the European Union. When the EU law system does not permit you to be extradited to your country, I'm talking of what maybe you might have heard within recent times, that somebody like Francois Compaoré was refused to be extradited to Burkina Faso because the EU law looks at it that his case might be more political than judicial. And so if the EU law system in that standard could say this person should not be extradited to Burkina Faso, why should Cameroon be thinking that every time a Cameroonian that is hated by the political regime that has taken Cameroon hostage for the past 60 years should instead be clamored and even sent to prison? Please, you have your mind.
He cut the hands of people.
Please,
those people are suffering.
Please, Mr. Kedia, if you have a political
if I said, your hands, you could have hated him.
I said, I hope honestly your own hand was not cut. And so one of the things we are saying here is that when you support a particular political milieu, there is at times you lack the sense of honesty. And everybody that was claimed until it came out of the national media, it is a disgrace to some of us, which means that a media which every Cameroonian is paying becomes more impartial or becomes more partial. Then we should be capable of reporting facts as they are. Okay. Eric Tato, let me not make it clear that the Cameroonian press and even social media should stop propagating false news. Eric Tato was not taken to court because of the Anglophone separatist movement. He was taken to court because of a crime, loan fraud. Okay. And that is a United States crime.
Let me come in here, Dr. Ako John Ako, in the affidavit which was submitted.
The record straight is the Inspector General in the Ministry of External Relations, John Billy Eko. In the following interview conducted by Drusilla Mokoso Joki, Mr. Billy Eko first reacts to the statement released by the U.S. Justice Department.
First of all, it is relevant to remind your listeners that the plaintiff in this matter is the government of the United States of America, and the defendants are citizens of the United States of America who are being indicted in a U.S. jurisdiction for violation of U.S. laws. So
The record straight is the Inspector General in the Ministry of External Relations, John Billy Eko. In the following interview conducted by Drusilla Mokoso Joki, Mr. Billy Eko first reacts to the statement released by the U.S. Justice Department.
first of all, it is relevant to remind your listeners that the plaintiff in this matter is the government of the United States of America, and the defendants are citizens of the United States of America who are being indicted in a U.S. jurisdiction for violation of U.S. laws. So
but we want to assure Ambazonians them say this case no be an indictment for our struggle, and it no get nothing to do with people the way they follow a genuine cause.
The record straight is the Inspector General in the Ministry of External Relations, John Billy Eko. In the following interview conducted by Drusilla Mokoso Joki, Mr. Billy Eko first reacts to the statement released by the U.S. Justice Department.
first of all, it is relevant to remind your listeners that the plaintiff in this matter is the government of the United States of America, and the defendants are citizens of the United States of America who are being indicted in a U.S. jurisdiction for violation of U.S. laws. So
Welcome to ACN.